Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Last Epoch dev stream. As always, I'm your host, Mike. How's it going, everybody? Happy to be here. We're just gonna hop right back in. We're still rocking our marksman. We're having a lot of fun with this marksman, so we're just gonna keep rolling with it. We had a very difficult fight in the arena at the end of last stream that we barely survived. But we're gonna start back in the Age of Winter monolith here, try and get into empowered soon. I'd actually like to actually push this character a little bit higher, which would be nice. And as always, because we're severely underleveled, we're going to be taking experience nodes first. Oh, you may notice we have a new charity up here. So we switched over. We're St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. I think that's what it was. And I can say, actually, I'll probably say this again a little bit later on, just because there's not a lot of people here yet. We'll get some more people later, but I'll say it again. We finished our 2-month campaign for UNICEF, for Children Relief Fund for Ukraine. So the community raised $1,525.42. And so we said we would match that, but it was a little bit lower than we were hoping for, so we bumped it up a little bit and matched it, so we're donating a total of $3,500 for that charity. So that's the result of that, which is great. Hopefully that they can do some work saving some children. You know, those people that don't quite have the resources and experiences to handle things on their own just yet. I do quite like the recent children's theme for the charity. It works for me. I don't actually have to pick them, but I've been quite happy with that focus recently.
Not happening.
So yeah, I'm just gonna keep going with this and power through some monolith. Hopefully get into empowered. Maybe not this stream, but maybe next stream. We also at the on the back half of this stream, as we finish up, I will be hopping over to, I guess it's kind of like an extended stream. So we're going to be spending an hour after this is over with Aaron over on the Action RPG stream, and we'll be designing a unique live. So if you're interested in seeing a unique get designed live, stick around for that. It'll be on his channel, but you know, I'll be rating him and everything.
Not happening.
These are actually interesting boots. The attunement's kind of meh with the strength, but like, I don't know. It's got a significant amount of forging potential, so it feels kind of like a blank canvas to work with. So those are actually interesting boots. Strength in the war gen is a little disjointed. I don't know. If I can get if I can get the attunement to turn into move speed, I think that's prefix. Seal the attunement? Yeah, that's a big way to do it. I'd probably chaos it.
Not happening.
But sealing it's a good idea actually as well. There's probably a higher chance of getting the slot back with sealing it than chaosing it. I just like to roll the dice, you know? Almost want to do the other ones first to see what you get. Or do a discovery on the rest first so that you can, if there is a crit that happens with it, you're less likely to accidentally upgrade when you are trying to seal the attunement and it gets an upgrade. If it crits, it'll just like pump itself up again and you get one less shot at the sealing. Oh yeah, and if this is your first time here, please just do an @Last Epoch game in the question, and I will see it and answer your question. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask those. Do my best. I do see a message from a first-time viewer, which reminded me to say that, and I will read it fully in a second here, not die. Says, hey, thanks for that podcast thing with Zizarin. I love how you engage with the community. You're welcome. I had fun with that. That was great. Yeah, just a little interview. Heavy saying just to re-roll it. Yeah, because they have a smaller affix pool. It does. They are. So you're right. You are definitely right that it is a smaller affix pool. I wasn't taking that into account. Ooh. Some of my friends recently... oh, I got a question here. I'll answer the question instead of rambling. Which existing mastery class do you think needs the most work, and what about it would you like to see changed? Good question. So it's mastery class specifically is the question. Weirdly enough, the two that are coming to mind are Sorcerer and Beastmaster. Those are the two that are coming to mind the most. And part of that's because Beastmaster has that Sabretooth and Bear, summon Sabretooth and summon Bear nodes that are kind of like, bleh. The whole trees are just, they're really old. The visuals need to be updated on them. Like, everything about those needs to be done. And that's, like, that's 2/5 of that mastery, really. And also just because Druid had such a big recent change, it does look a little bad by comparison. Sorcerer, I mean, doesn't have the third mastery yet, so it has less secondary options, and the secondary class or mastery that is there, Spellblade, is kind of distinct from it. Like there's a fair bit of overlap, but like one is specifically about big long range spells, and there's specifically about closer short range spells. So they are a little at odds, which makes it tricky for secondary passive nodes to really feel solid. And then teleport's got some issues. I think there's been a lot of conversation recently about mana generation and usage rates and I think a lot of it stems from Sorcerer. I know it's not entirely, but I think a lot of that conversation stems from there. So I think those would be my answers. There's definitely work to be done on all of them.
Not happening.
That's just those are the two that come to mind immediately as having two or more major standout to-do things still. Woo!
Not happening.
Okay, move please. Just, look over there for a second. Huh? Thank you. Ooh, attack speed on there's nice. Hello, Tunnel Picklebacker. What Nerd Herb has? What are you going to ramble about? Oh, what am I going to ramble about? Okay, well, some of my friends started playing a variant of WoW recently called Ascension, which gives basically it's classless WoW. And I was looking into it the way they did it and like the implications of it. It was really interesting because there's so many skills and passives, and there's so many options to put things into in WoW. They've got like humongous trees, and while I don't think it would ever work as like a core game mode because it would be overwhelming for so many people, it was really cool to think about as like, I don't know, like a thought experiment type thing. And it got me thinking about like doing some sort of like temporary mode with that or experimental mode with that for us, and like what things I would break in Epoch. Immediately it was just like, this would be dumb. This would just be bad. There's so many things that like we can only make because, and this is like highlighting issues that I've looked at before and reasons why I've been really happy with having skill trees be so compartmentalized, is because you can put things on them that would be completely broken OP if they were combined with just anything. So yeah, I thought it was cool. But after thinking about it for a while, I was like, I'd basically just make a warlock with like healing so I could end battle res. Be like, if I could life tap and heal myself at the same time, poof.
Easy. Too easy.
I used to have a macro on my life tap that would whisper one of the healers when I was using it and just be like, I'm life tapping, heal me. Oh, look at that! I'm not really doing fire and no LP on it, but yeah, it's a very cool bow. Ooh, that's a spicy meatball!
Not happening.
Run away! Vinegar asks, do you build your own filters in-game or do you use pre-built ones from Last Epoch Tools website? Well, my filter right now is extremely basic. I did build it myself. I think it's 2 lines. It's just like, take away the white items, and I may have put something else in there. Okay, I just hide the white and blue items. That's all I did. So I probably should have it more strict. When I've like played more, so I don't play that much on this character on the stream, so it's just a couple hours a week. So I don't really feel the need to make a complicated filter for it. But I usually will like slap in a couple basic things, like just highlight me some items that have this, that, or the other that I'm really looking for, so I know what to look at quickly. But there's some really nice filters that people have made. Last time I made my own, I actually used, I think Heavy has a like a starter filter that you can kind of like work off of.
Not happening.
I think that's what I used last time. One day I hope for that filter, loot filter sharing to be built into the game. That would be really nice. Long-term goals.
Not happening.
Ba-ba-booey. There we go. Alright. When's the next multiplayer update post coming? I don't know. We're still working on the... I guess the main focus... You know, I just realized the sound is cranked, isn't it? Huh. Hey. Ooh. Ooh. Lone Star McFluffin has rated us. Thank you very much. Welcome to the party, Lone Star McFluffin. And friends? Some nice mana and resistance. We don't need that crit base, but...
Might have to drop something.
Or stash some things away, because we don't like just dropping stuff. Well, sometimes we do. We don't need that. Or that. Or that. Or that, really. There's decent resistances there. The health is just overwhelming. And we've got coming in... Arrow Word has resubbed for 5 months in a row. I demand more B-puns! I don't know, I got nothing right now, sorry. The hair's getting too long, gotta get a haircut. I joked about that a little while ago, never did it.
Not happening.
Definitely need to. Sorry, multiplayer stuff. We're focusing. So we are working on. I know we talked about. We're advancing multiplayer stuff right now, and there's a lot happening with it at the moment. So we're kind of focused on that. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening there right now, actually. When can we expect the rest of the specialization classes? At or before 1.0. Which I know isn't an actual time, it's just another event, but that's the only thing I can say. It's just at least by 1.0. So it might be with 1.0, it might be before 1.0, but it'll definitely be by 1.0 at the latest. And not next patch. So sometime between the patch after next and 1.0. Inclusive.
Not happening.
If you could add one unrepresented player fantasy archetype to the game, what would it be? So if I could add it myself, I love this question, by the way. If I could add it myself with, like, no oversight, do whatever I want, I didn't have to, like, get collaboration with anyone, it was just purely me, whatever I want, no questions asked, it would be a
Not happening.
bard, jester, trickster, tinkerer, engineer, something in that range. Like it's kind of a muddled. I'm not exactly sure what it would be exactly, but something in that where it's it's like the magic of mundane things. But if that makes any sense. That's the type of archetype I'd be looking for. So it would be a lightly armored class with a lot of gadgets and it would use, I guess, crowd control defensively a lot. It would be a lot of buffs and temporary minions, I guess. And there's definitely some fantasies represented there in Rogue already.
Not happening.
But I think there's room to make it distinct. We're talking about just a mastery. Was that a mastery or a player fantasy archetype? Yeah, okay, so it could have been anything. Yeah. The only other thing I think would be like really basic, just like a barbarian, where it's just straight up all it's about is I'm gonna hit you with this hammer, and the harder I can swing this hammer is the more damage you're gonna take. That's the whole class fantasy, and so yeah, like that's the only other one I'd look at, because we don't really have that so much. We kind of have hints of it here and there. Ooh. All right. What do you hold in higher regard when making decisions? Story, endgame, or audience? That's a really tough question to answer, because I think it really depends on what it is. So, for example, if it is a like, and none of those, like, you don't always have to sacrifice one of those to get the others either. So yeah, that's a tricky one. I'm not sure. Making decisions, story, endgame, or audience. I also don't really understand what you mean by audience. Like how we think that it's going to be received by people, like what the players we know they've asked for. I think that story often takes a back seat. I think if we can make something mechanically fun first, we will, and then if we can fit a storyline to it, we will. But sometimes we do things strictly for story-related reasons first. Like there's unique items that are in the game as a story element first, and then we're like, okay, can we fit some mechanics that work with this story element? But for the most part, items will definitely go mechanics first. That's a tricky question. I'm sorry, I didn't really have a good answer for you. Which ARPG game have you played multiplayer? Or which ARPG game you played multiplayer you had most fun in? So what was the multiplayer? Which was the multiplayer ARPG that I enjoyed the most? It's kind of a cop-out answer, because you can take the multiplayer part out of that, and still my favorite one is Diablo 2. Yeah. It's just the one I play the most. It's the one I grew up with.
Not happening.
Was so tempted to play this new ladder that just released. Oh. Saw someone post some boots this morning on Reddit. Oh my god, they were amazing. Oh. It was tri-element res, so not even, and move speed, faster hit recovery, and magic find. And all in good quantities too. It was just like the best boots I've ever seen. Like what, day 10 on the ladder or something? Jelly. Yeah, that's what happens when your hand is off by one.
Not happening.
Okay, we're gonna take a look at those idols because I bet some of them are upgrades because I haven't done anything to my idol anything recently. Yeah. Thank you to whoever that was. I will look at it in a brief moment. Hunter X Bandai Killer has resubbed for 6 months in a row. Last Epoch bees indeed. Thank you very much. 6 months? That's yeah. I don't know. It's always cool when I see those big numbers show up like that. I really appreciate it. And for anyone who has joined us since I did my spiel first thing, all that money goes to charity. Charity's right above my head. And the end of our campaign for UNICEF, we are donating $3,500 to UNICEF. 1,500 and change of which was raised by you all, the community, you fantastic folks. So you can give yourself a round of applause for that. Get it? Round of applause. All right, you mentioned on the podcast that you guys had plans on implementing a system to skip some parts of the story. Do you think it might come before 1.0 or after? Well, as I said in the podcast, or maybe it was on stream somewhere. Someone asked me like how long until we implement it, and I was like, -6 months was the answer because it's already in. It's been in for 6 months. So yes, definitely plan to implement it before 1.0 because it's already in the game. Some question. I know it's far in the future, but what do you think will be the main focus with cycles, seasonal content, keeping the leveling progression story refreshing, adding stuff to endgame? I think that that focus will change as the years go on, so to speak. But initially, I think it'll be focused on. I think it'll be very similar to the patches we get now, the more endgame focused patches that we get now, at least initially, where we're still like adding lots of new content to the game, just like padding out some slightly neglected areas of content, like adding new dungeons, maybe making tweaks to like endgame systems, maybe we're just tacking on, adjusting old ones, like there'll be a whole bunch of things like that initially, and then I think once the game settles into a bit more of a groove, the focus and theme of those might shift a little bit. But I know, like, we're already looking at big changes to the campaign, even now. Like, just the things I know we've, like, gone through and, like, adjusted the campaign a few times now. But, like, every time we do anything with the campaign, new content, adjusting old content, we learn stuff. And we develop new techniques and new systems and new tools. And suddenly the people who are making these things have all these new things they can do with it that they were like, when they were initially making the content, they're like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I can't because we don't have a tool for it or something like that. And then now we do, and so they're like, oh, I wish I could go back to this story and update it and fix it and everything. And so yeah, we are like, we're still wanting to give people the opportunity to go back and reimagine and update lots of the content, and The story's evolved as well over the years, so sometimes our initial plans don't quite line up with what we have now. Health and endurance is nice, but those first two are, for me at least. Yeah. So it'll be a little bit of everything, really. And I think it'll depend. I think it's also something that will change, and like we'll reevaluate every cycle, every patch. But we do definitely want reasons for people to, maybe you've played a lot and you've kind of worked your way through most of the content we have. Like having reasons for people to be excited to come back to the game, I think is really an important part of those cycles. And usually that's so different for so many different people. So like we probably have to either have really varied patches or really focused patches. Or I don't know, maybe a bit of both. I'm kind of just rambling here because I don't know exactly what the optimal way to do it is. And I'm sure after we've done a few of them, we'll change our minds on what we think the optimal way to do it is. And a lot of that will be based on feedback we get from all of you. As, I mean, everything else we do is basically. Alright, just you and me, Matriarch. Alright, just me. Come on. Hello, guys. Did you guys at any point throughout the sorry, just a sec. Apparently I was talking too loud and I was waking up a baby. Anyways, hello guys. Did you guys at any point thought about taking increase more damage nodes from skill trees, making so damage comes mainly from your gear and passives? We try and avoid as many just flat damage increases in the skill trees as possible. And usually the ones that have more of that are generally older skills that still need to be updated. So yes and no, we do want certain things, and usually they're really conditional, or they're based on synergies with other skills, or synergies within the skill, or they change the way the skill scales and things like that. So we try and have as few just, okay, well, Fireball does 20% more damage now because you put these points in, as we can. Now, we do want there to be power increases when you level up the skill, because we do want that to be an exciting event. So there's a balance there. And we want ideally, a large portion of your power comes from your gear. Now, a lot of the power does come from your skill points. Mostly it's due to nodes that are changing the way scaling happens, or they're just really synergistic with some other piece of gear or scaling from some other source. Neither one can really stand on their own without the other, I don't think, and that's definitely by design. Hello, Aaron! Hi. I hope you're ready for the summer and laugh and play and something else. It's a good thing I can't sing at all, because it means we can never be hit by copyright strikes for like music, because it's so bad that no algorithm would ever pick it up. Oh, you guys got some health! It's impressive.
Not happening. Not happening.
Come on.
Not happening.
There's a lot of enemies in this one. Trying not to die here.
Not happening.
Some strong enemies. And a lot of them. But we got it. We got it. Hello, Winfox. How's it going? Give me that experience. We're almost 80. Almost 80. We're going for those XP shrine or XP nodes big time. Sanctuary Reaper asks, as I know you're a D2 fan, I've been playing patch 2.4 pretty much since it dropped, and I wanted to share a pog drop with you. A soul and Umrune and a perfect Magic Circlet. The set items are interesting because being able to up them now in the cube is it's really cool. Someone made a big spreadsheet a few months ago on congrats on the Umrune, by the way. That's nice. Early Umrune in the ladder. Very nice. But
Not happening.
what was I saying? Oh yeah, the set items being able to up now, and so making a big spreadsheet with like all the best things to up, and it was pretty interesting. There's some actually decent options in there. Last bear chest. Well, we're not playing a bear, so we don't have to pick it up.
Easy. Too easy. Not happening.
I think a lot of people look fondly back at D2, often with nostalgia. So let's flip it. If there's anything you'd absolutely not repeat from Diablo 2, what would it be? I mean, so there's a really obvious answer here, and it's the same thing that Brevik answers every time he gets asked this question, and it's stamina. And so I'm not going to submit that as the actual answer to this question, because I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out answer at this point, because it's been answered so many times as the answer to that question. So stamina aside, I think the biggest problem with it, and it's really because it is like being compared to newer games that have much more robust endgame systems. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of two answers in one, as I just realized as I'm talking. So it doesn't have a lot of endgame systems. Basically, all there is the Pandemonium event and declone, which is cool. But until the changes that they just made, declone was basically unavailable for almost everyone as an actual thing to do. It's now actually kind of accessible, which is phenomenal, but it still is just Diablo, just a touch harder. There's not really anything new there. It's not actually that much worse. But the biggest problem, I think, comes from the lack of top-end build diversity. And I'm kind of looping all of this in to highlight some of the mods that are out there for Diablo 2, which I think have done a fantastic job of addressing a lot of these things. And I don't think it's really a failing of the game itself, but rather just things we've learned about ARPGs and what's possible, and having other good examples available to us through other games like Grim Dawn and Path of Exile, and even just the things we learned from Diablo 3 itself. And so having a more robust endgame system, which they've actually started to do a little bit in 2.4 when they added all the new 85 zones, the 85 level zones, so you can actually like farm in new places apart from just like the 3 good places to farm before. There's now like 20 of them or something, and but just having those endgame systems. So things like Path of Diablo basically adds Path of Exile's mapping system to Diablo 2, which is ton of fun. I know a few people that have worked on maps for it, like creating maps for it, which is really neat.
Not happening.
Yeah, so I would say the long-winded answer is the lack of endgame content and lack of top-end build diversity at endgame. So, like, I know I'm rambling so much here about this, but just and 2.4 does a fair bit to address this. The last point is that end game build diversity, which I hope has been significantly improved. And as I'm thinking about this, the other things that 2.4 did is something that I probably should have said. Is just the short version of this answer is the shared cooldowns, which they've removed in 2.4. So shared cooldowns and stamina, I think, are the easy answers for stuff. But yeah, so like you have paladins that are able to do the hardest content in the game at level 30, and then you have other classes that could technically get it done with absolutely perfect gear. like you got a level 100, you got a level 100 druid with absolutely perfect gear. Yeah, you can do Ubers, you know, but apart from that, you're probably not doing Ubers on your druid. And yeah, I know there are some builds that can get it done, and it's like it is possible and everything, but they're not even in the like conversation really. It's basically paladins and assassins with, like, you know, Barb can get it done, Necro can get it done, Sorcerer can get it done, but like Zon's usually relegated from that conversation. Druid's usually not even talked about.
Not happening.
I know I just sound like I went on like a 20-minute rant about all the things that are terrible about Diablo 2, but I'm really nitpicking, and you know, that's about it. There's not really much left to talk about of things that aren't fantastic in that game.
Not happening.
Yeah, I love Diablo 2. Nukapanna though, oh yeah. Oh, so many things want my money right now. I recently got a new carrying case for cards, and bought a brief story time here. Bought plans for 3D printed cases that hold all the cards that sit in there. And then there's like the top slides out with like a top loader sleeve that you put the commander in, and then like you can get the cards out real easy. But this all like locks in and everything. Yeah, so I've done that recently, and I'm trying to get the rest of them printed. And because it's actually kind of difficult to get them printed, and they take a long time to do, I caved and just bought a printer. They've come down in price so unbelievably much. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I just wasn't even considering buying one. I'm like, they're $1,000. There's no point in even looking at them. Someone linked me on like a $300 printer. I'm like, yeah, I can make that work. Save up for a couple months and get that. No problem. Been wanting one for years. So really excited about that. It's supposed to arrive on Sunday. Yeah, Nukapanna has some very exciting cards. Nukapanna, if anyone that doesn't know, is a magic set that just came out, or like today, I think. I think today's the official launch day. Maybe it was last Friday. But yeah, it's got some really cool cards in it that are exciting. Got a new equipment that can turn. So some planeswalkers can be your commander. Big downside to that is you could never win with commander damage because you can't turn planeswalkers into creatures. You can through like very roundabout means by like turning them into artifacts and then animating that artifact, and it's just a pain. But now it's just one equipment that you just slap on it and it becomes a creature. Gideon anything. It's a little pricey though, so I didn't pick one up, but I think it's really cool they're adding things like that. No, when a new set drops, I'm like, all right, what is under $1 that looks cool?
Not happening.
All right, let's move back off Magic to Last Epoch, the thing that I'm actually supposed to be here for. I just get rambly, you know. What was the decision-making process behind the current endgame system? About 4 years of discussions, but I can try and summarize them. Why did you decide on soft cap scaling endgame versus hard cap max level system / endgame boss? Well, okay, so there is a hard cap on player power. There is a maximum amount of stats you can get, and that doesn't there's a hard cap there. There's just the point where you could design theoretically the most powerful creature or anything in the game, and it is technically possible. It's not functionally possible, and that's by design, where there's always technically a way to make your character just a little bit better. No character is truly ever 100% done and perfect, and part of that is just the I really like the feeling that there's always something more that a character can do, and if someone wants to really just have that pet character, that's, I don't mean like a pet class or like minions, but just like that character that's like, this is my baby, and I'm gonna just play this one character forever, there's always something you can get for it. I think that's really cool. I think it's really fun. I really enjoy that, the ability to just like focus hard on one character if you want. I think that's just awesome. And there's always that moment, like I was just talking about this morning, when I saw that pair of boots dropped, or I didn't see it drop, but I saw it posted on Reddit, and there's those moments of like, oh my god, I've never seen anything that amazing drop. And those boots, I've seen other boots that are extremely similar, so it's not that distinct. But there's always that feeling of like, there's always something a little bit better that could happen, and I don't know, I love that feeling myself, of like, you can find more. There's room to improve your character more. As for like the scaling of endgame itself and how that works and how it can always go up higher, that's kind of a similar thing where there's always room for improvement on. There's always a harder challenge to take on. There definitely needs to be that balance where there are these benchmark non-scaling challenges, and we've started to add those a little bit. So there's the dungeon bosses are benchmark non-scaling challenges, where they, like a T4 Jewelry fight can change a little bit based on the mods you pick, but there's sort of like a cap on where that limit is. So like you can take super hard mods throughout that, but there's only 2 of them you can take, and it's about 200% more damage and health. I think it's about the cap that you can get on it. So there is, I think it's important to have both. And we kind of try and work both styles in where we can. If that makes any sense. Because you can end up like, so going back to Diablo 2, you can end up in a system where, yes, there is this, like, the hardest fight in the game is like, there's not this like dynamically scaling content, and there's this hardest fight in the game that is the benchmark of what to do, and that's the only really end game activity to be done, other than just like keep continuing to level your character, really.
Not happening.
So having those challenges that can continually get harder and harder, I think, is important, along with everything else.
Not happening.
It also helps for having a ladder. So if there is a so let's take level as an example for a ladder, compared to like max waves in the arena.
Not happening.
You can have people tied with no way to improve for level. Will be level 100 to max level. You always have either a clear winner or the potential for someone to improve upon a tied time. So there's always a way for someone to get a little bit better in the arena, because you can just go to another wave. The next wave is possible. So there's always room for competition there. And I think that when you don't have time limits on top ends of competition, it allows for people to continue to do it into the future. So I think I'll use speedrunning as an example here. So certain games get really popular when speedrunning, when there's like times are getting lowered constantly. There's a lot of things that make a good speedrunning game, so I won't get into that. But it's lots of times they're really popular when there's perceived room for improvement. And quite often they'll slow down or die out when the human limit's been achieved. Was that a Summoning Salt video, I think? Mario the Human Limit or something like that? And we're like frames off of the lowest possible time in like Super Mario. Super Mario Bros. Like the just NES. And personally, I haven't, and like I don't intently track these things very much. I kind of just passively will pop my head back into certain speedrunning communities when I see an update about one of them or something, or a record gets broken. But a lot, I have a feeling that the number of people competing on those leaderboards slows down pretty heavily when it's perceived that there's nowhere to improve upon. There's no way to like beat the person who's in first, so why bother trying, right? And I think something similar happens with hard-capped ladder systems. So like Diablo 2, someone's already hit 100 in the ladder. And now there's still like who can hit 100 first on like Amazon and Druid, who can hit, so there's still all of that. But for just who can hit 100 first, that's done. For a lot of people, the ladder's over already. Okay, I should say a lot. For a select few elite players, the ladder's basically over already. But I think having that feeling that there's still a new person, someone could come in a month down the road and take that top spot still with a non-capped top spot on the ladder is really interesting. Where someone could show up a year from that point and like still compete and still do better, and that happens a lot in speedrunning because the fastest time is just 0, but they can calculate with tool assisted speedruns where basically it's a computer doing the run and you're just telling programming the computer what to do. Which is a completely different skill that's also quite impressive, but when you're in that situation, you can tell what's level 100 in that situation. And that's actually a pretty sweet bow. and I think it's cool to I think it would be cool to look at the popularity of speedrunning games based on how close they are to the human limit, whether their like best record is. Side note, while we're talking about speedrunning just a little bit tangentially, sorry, I know I'm way off topic here. I'll bring it back, I promise. There's a Twilight Princess speedrun. So there's any percent, which is just finish the game as fast as possible. And then there's 100%, which is complete the game and get everything. And then there's a lowest percent or low percent speedrun category. That's normally the same as any percent because getting stuff takes longer. So low percent is get the fewest number of things to complete the game. And because of a glitch in Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, when Link shows an item to the camera, it's so annoying if you ever play that game. Every time you find a flippin' blue rupee, look, a blue rupee! Oh my goodness! And you sit there and you're like, great, I didn't know this was a blue rupee or what it does, thanks. But he slowly moves backwards by tiny little steps when he's in that pose, and someone figured out that if you pick up a blue rupee with your back to a door and wait a few hours, you'll get through the door. So there's a speedrun that involves leaving your computer for 13 hours or something silly. I just thought that was neat. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's cool. Low percent Twilight Princess. It's silly. All right, let's go back to questions that are actually Last Epoch related. I'm sorry. PoE has seen Bloat. That can be seen as both good and bad thing to their core game from adding league mechanics to the core game. Is EHG planning to use cycles to add content to the core game, and if so, are there plans to prevent bloat? Yes and yes. So sometimes that content can be... there's a lot of different... This is another really deep topic, I think. I'm not going to go too far into it, but the short answer is yes, we're going to add stuff to the core game. Yes, we're going to do stuff to hopefully prevent bloat. The easy way to do that is just remove systems. So like you put one in, take one out, you know, and it's not bloat. However, the problem with that is that you end up removing something that someone really likes. One way you can avoid that is by reworking systems to sort of include other ones. And there's things we've seen like that happen in PoE already. And sometimes it's met really well, sometimes it's not. It really depends. And then there's sometimes you can focus leagues around, I guess, reworking old systems. So, like, we could focus a league around... I keep using the term league, and I know it's cycles, I'm sorry. We could focus a cycle around, for example, reorganizing the monolith. And it's basically making a new like, endgame system to play with, but it is the same system, so you can kind of replace the old with the new. And that avoids bloat. And we've definitely built our monolith system with being able to do that in mind, and being able to get pretty deep content from that type of changing, and make things new and interesting still, while not increasing the total amount of things in the game. And so that is something that comes up in conversations quite often, of like, where's the limit of too much? How do we decide if something should be a new system or a replacement system? Stuff like that. So there's a lot of consideration for that. We are looking ahead 10 years, hopefully, and seeing, like, how can we maintain this exciting new thing for years and years and years, similar to how Path of Exile has maintained a new and exciting thing for years and years and years, and hopefully learning from the things they've done well and the things that they've learned themselves that they've not done so well as well, because you can see changes in their own strategies to it at the same time. Over the years, and yeah, so yes and yes is the answer to that question. Right, Heavy, I know you already teasered a bit that one of the missing masteries will have a special mechanic. Will that involve a pet that is not really considered a minion in the typical LE sense in terms of gearing and itemization? So the question, which I think you're trying to ask, is will the Falcon be an actual pet, or will it be something else? And I don't really want to answer this because, like, it's not implemented far enough to really say for sure if things aren't going to change, you know? And I don't want to be like, oh yeah, it's going to be this, and then we implement what our plans are, and then we're like, wait a second, this isn't actually fun. I think there's a lot... I just want to preface this question, I guess, by saying, I think people are, even though I keep saying we haven't done anything on them, I think people are assuming that I'm bluffing, and we've actually done a lot on them, and I'm just not ready to talk about it or something like that. We've done so freaking little with the masteries. like really, so little. And most of what we've done with it is available on our website. Like, there's really little. We've spec'd out some skills that we have planned, like some just like one-liner descriptions, like this much of a description on what we want some skills to be for those masteries, and that's about it. There's a few models and like little things like that, but the actual like functional design of most of it, totally up for changing and feedback still. As I'm sure people, especially like you who've been here for quite a while, know, a lot changes through feedback. That Corsair shield just got a buff, which is nice. So, I think you've made a very astute observation based on the small amount of information we've given, but I'm not going to confirm or deny what you said. Sorry. Skygear, yes, I play standing. So I can do things like this. Ha ha. Ha ha. It's warm in here. The window is wide open. My heat is completely off. It is warm in here. Ooh. I actually really like that amulet. Don't like that one so much. Don't like that one so much either. This is a nice amulet, but I don't like it. Yeah, we might craft on that one a little later. XP node, let's go! What is the team / your thoughts on dungeon maps as they stand? Are the future ones going to be the same? So I think the underlying and I'm sorry if I know I use the term like I think the underlying question here is, and I'm sorry if I get these completely wrong, but I feel like the underlying question here is asking about randomization for them and how that's done, because it doesn't. We don't use a traditional procedural generation for maps like you would see in things like Path of Exile. And I know that, like, how do I put this? Technically, the act of having a large grid and putting blockers in that grid is exactly the same from a functional standpoint as just having a of just like having the pathways get created. So, that is. I was gonna draw something on my screen, but I've got to finish this first before I do that. The problem with blocking them off is it has, and it's something I've alluded to in the past, is it has what I believe to be a negative psychological impact of being able to see the paths that weren't created, or to see the paths that were blocked off, like being able to see those things that could have been but weren't, as being really frustrating and disappointing. And so I think that if we can, converting to a more traditional system of procedural generation would be ideal. However, there aren't any plans to do that for 1.0 at the moment. I will say that when I use that phrase, that just means we don't have active plans for it, and usually that's because we either don't know how, or we do know how, and we know it's going to take way too long to do before the deadline we would set for it. So I could see that being something that we work on still. Well, that's something that we're going to keep working on for sure. Is making our systems for creating levels and randomization better in every sense of it. And but I think what you'll see likely at launch is very similar to what we have now. I'd be pretty unless someone on the team comes up with some unbelievable solutions out of the blue to the problems we have, and so like there are examples of that happening, but I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. Is kind of the problem. So like you see at the top of the screen how there are the ailments get listed. Like you see there's the bleed, fire, shred, all that showing up. About a year ago, I think, maybe a little bit more, if you'd asked me, can we have those? I would have given you the exact same answer I just gave you to the other question. But we have those now. And then about a month ago, if you'd asked me, so you might have noticed that there's like, sometimes it'll show up, look, it's a 15. It says 15 plus as a cap. It doesn't actually tell you how many there are over 15. About a month ago, if you asked me, can we remove that cap, I would have given you the exact same answer as well. But now I can say, well, there's a good chance that'll go away, actually. Because I think someone figured out a way to fix it. I just don't like saying, like, oh yeah, we'll fix that. Well, I don't know if we can. So for now, we don't have a good way of creating random levels the way you are more used to them from other games. So we're not planning on doing it. But it is something we definitely want to have. And it's passively being worked on. There's no one actively working on it, but I bet it's in the back of several people's minds. If that makes any sense. Am I getting a little far behind, aren't I, here? talking too long. What's your current favorite build on liches? I just love melee lich of like, let's focus on reap as much as possible. And harvest. I remember Trisoki saying EHG would look at stun and stun mitigation. Is this still something that's on the list of things to look at? And we haven't talked about it in a while. I don't know if there's... I can't say it's actively something that's being prototyped. Any changes to or anything like that? But the list, as you put it, is huge. So it's probably on there somewhere.
Not happening.
It's probably on the lower half of the list. Not useful for us. Heavy, roughly how much percentage of your team's capacity will return to creating regular content from the game once multiplayer is in a stable state? And do you have team members who will solely stay focused on keeping an eye on multiplayer in terms of servers and back-end tech after that stable multiplayer state is achieved? Will the cadence of updates to regular game increase, or will updates simply be bigger? There's a lot of people that working on solely multiplayer content, or I shouldn't say solely, primarily multiplayer content, that will that their focus will shift back to content, like gameplay content, once multiplayer is the norm, I want to say. We spent a lot of time in the last year getting away from like, I'm working on multiplayer, I'm working on the rest of the game, and just being like, we're working on the whole game together type thing. So like there, it felt like there was two teams before, and we spent a long time merging those teams together. So it's but yeah, there's a lot of like all those people that are working on the game. I mean, once multiplayer is more stable, being able to have them spend more time on content is a natural evolution of the things they're doing, for sure. There will be some people that will continue to be dedicated to multiplayer stuff only, like, you know, maintaining servers and things like that. Like there's a lot of work that to be done on that long term. Another question here and there. Yeah, I can't give you a percentage number. I don't know. It also, if I gave you a percentage number, it would mean literally nothing to you as well. So, sorry, I'm not gonna give you a number on that. It would be very misleading. Someone mentioning someone else to tag questions with my name. What was the question? So it's been a while. Any updates on gun lance or fist weapons? Gunpowder has not been invented in the world at this point. As far as fist weapons go, I don't think that the only character that I think would really fit fist weapons really nicely or at all would be a blade dancer, and I think the fantasy of a blade dancer is a little. I mean, you can make the argument for a primalist, but none of the masteries really work, so yeah. I think you're more likely to see fist weapons come with a new mastery. I'll say that. And gunpowder hasn't been invented, so yeah. Sup. I love speedrunning on this game. Sweet, that's cool. I saw some speedrunning talks recently, actually. I think that's neat. I find speedrunning fascinating, and I love it, and I've never really tried to get into it, but I love like watching people do speedrunning streams, and I love watching recaps of like how we got to where we are on like certain world records and things like that. Some great YouTubers out there. Summoning Salt does awesome ones. Really few and far between on his content, so once you've like binged it, it sucks because you're like, where is it? It's like a month, 2 months later. Where is it? Carl Jobst? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry. He does good stuff too. Anyways, on this game, will there be some ladder for campaign or something more like in PoE where they announce who the first one to reach areas? Announcing the first person to reach an area is tricky. We definitely looked into that when we were designing our systems, and I know that was a feature that we wanted, and we're unsure if we're going to be able to deliver on. Certain landmarks, like who's the first to reach 100, that's easy to do. First to enter zones might be possible, but it's on the maybe list at the moment. I do love that the way they announce that stuff. I think that's so cool. Just it gives a sense of being part of the event when it happens, even though you're not. And I think that the early examples of that I experienced was in WoW. We were fighting Yogg-Saron with all of the Guardians up. So I think we're Guardians. So it's like the hardest version of Yogg-Saron on heroic difficulty and everything, and there's like a big achievement for that. We were in the middle of the fight, and the announcement comes through that another guild has done it, and it's like, it's so heartbreaking, but it's cool, because we had done the exact same thing to them, however long it was before, in the Trial of the Grand Crusade with the New Barak, where we had done the Tribute to Insanity. It's like you do heroic mode with all 50 attempts remaining, and like no wipes, which is insane. And you have like, I don't know, it builds community, I guess. Like it has that competition. It makes you feel like you're a part of it. The announcement goes out, and then everyone like goes to Dalaran and waits around, and everyone shows up their new mounts and everything. I don't know. It's cool to have, and I really like that. I love that PoE does it. I'd love to have something like that in our game too. Spiral Chaos asks, I stumbled into this game trying to find another ARPG to play, so I haven't dug into all the notes yet. There's a lot. Are there any plans to implement non-combat companions to grab gold? Not at the moment. If we did, I do want to make this so like we're not against, we're not like it'll never happen. No, it's not that. We just don't have plans for it at the moment. It could happen. If it does happen, the question that quite often comes up is like, well, if you're gonna make people pay $5 to have a minion that goes around and picks things up, because there are companions already. Ooh, okay, crap. Pick one that other people could have. I know my account looks insane. There we go. So like we do have little companions that'll follow you around already as rewards for some of the Kickstarter bundles, the Alpha bundle, and then the these are the current ones. I know it looks really weird that I have some of the higher ones and not the lower ones. So if you have a higher one, you're supposed to just get the lower ones automatically. I don't think these ones are released right now, because they don't look fantastic. They might be, actually. I don't know. But when you buy the game, everyone gets this one right now. And that's something that's really important, is that if, hypothetically, we were to add a pet that could pick up gold, and it costs $5, hypothetically, there would always be a guaranteed free one that everyone had access to. So we would never lock a system like that behind a cosmetic.
Not happening.
Just want to make sure that's really clear. The pickup range on gold is also pretty huge. So, and it auto picks up. Do you think the Sentinel theming of high DR, high defense is sufficiently representative in Last Epoch, when virtually all other classes have more DR innate? It is innately, okay. In their passive tree, sorry, it scrolled for a second there, I didn't see what it said. Innately in their passive tree's thoughts. I think that the Sentinel has more synergies with various DR related things, if that makes any sense. I think they can synergize offense with defense a lot better. A prime example of that is being able to scale offensive points in Void Knight, with vitality, which is a defensive attribute. They're the only people that can do that. So I think that when other classes are taking these high defensive nodes, they are giving up quite a bit in opportunity cost. Usually, not always. And then sometimes there are times where combinations are found that were not intended and are more powerful than we had hoped. But yeah, if you don't feel like that's being represented properly, because I would say Sentinel is designed generally to be the most defensive, the easiest to set up a fairly defensive class with. That's how I should word it. And if you've got examples or suggestions on how to make it better into that fantasy, please head on over to our forums and leave a post there. Master Sword, we've got I don't know why I didn't react to that as well. Released has subbed for the first month in a row. I know I say first month in a row, but just thank you. Glad to have you with us. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Ooh, got a rare one there. All right. Any buff to high mana cost melee hits, Void Cleaver, Racing Strike. At the moment, they are underperforming in endgame. We buff those a lot. Like, I know it might seem like we do very much to it, but we do buff them quite a bit. Those two specifically. It feels like we're always buffing those skills. Like, pretty well every patch, it feels like we're buffing them for a while now. I think that the part of the problem is the assumption that they can be used exclusively. And having these skills where it's like, they cost too much mana to use as your only damage source. Yes. That's true. Are you hyped for Sentinel League? Looks awesome. I'm probably not gonna play it. I do think it looks awesome. I think the change in the mechanic, I feel it, like, I was not expecting what they did with it, and I think that's really cool when you can surprise people. Yeah, I'm hyped to see what they can do with it, what the impact is of it, all those sorts of things. I think it's gonna be great. Who knows what's gonna actually happen, but I'm very excited for it. First time chatters asked the question but didn't ping me. That's okay. Just a reminder, if you got a question, don't forget to put at Last Epoch game in the question and I will see it. Question was, when is Warlock going to be unlocked? For anyone that missed it earlier, it is sometime after next patch and by launch at the latest. So it will not be next patch. It could be any patch after that, up to and including 1.0. Alright. So in games where they speedrun, the game does not change. In an RPG, that's a good point. In an RPG, there will be changes, and there will come a broken build that can do stuff that no one other build can, and no matter if you wait 10 years, no one will be able to beat it. Yeah, and I think I was more referring to shorter term differences. So like with Diablo 2, because there's the ladders to 100 or 99, sorry, and like someone hits it and like that's it, no one can ever do better than that, right? And that happened a week, we're a week and a half, whatever it is now. 8 days, 9 days, something. Anyways, so we're pretty recent. Daedalus has gifted a T1 sub to MoxJet200. Thanks, Daedalus. MoxJet200 is the game director for Last Epoch, so doesn't exactly need one here, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. I always love seeing that when people when it's like a big gift and one of us randomly gets it. That's always funny. But that was targeted, so good job. Oh, Heavy's coming in with a bunch more. There's 5 more from Heavy. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone in there I recognize? Not so much, but congrats to everyone who got one of those. I hope you're enjoying yourself here. and can take advantage of it. Let's go over here and get some more info. Yes, sorry, so the speedrun thing, yeah, so there's like, with the arena, say someone does, say there's a three month long cycle as an example, just as a hypothetical, and someone in the first month comes in, and nothing changes mechanically in those 3 months. In the first month, someone comes in, plays really hard, gets up to like 500 waves, and it's like, that's the top. And then someone starts at this, like with a month left, and plays really hard, and just before it finishes, they get to 501 and they beat them. That's great. They didn't need to be there for the first little bit to compete on that ladder. And I think that's one of the big advantages of having a ladder that doesn't have a hard cap on it. That's the point I was trying to get to. Oh, hype train's going off. What does that mean? You ready? Thank you very much. Airword has kept things rolling here with 3 more gifted subs. Oh, Perry the Pig got one. Congrats, Perry. Perry hangs out quite a bit. So that's great. Yeah. I hope that explains a little bit better what I was trying to say, because I know I can start rambling and then I get off topic. Or I'll lose my thread sometimes. So sorry about that. Might confirm Falcon not a pet. Did I? Define pet. I think your underlying question is why you're already half an hour behind on chat. Ooh, am I? What is the most frustrating part of my job? Oh, when there's a bug that you just can't solve, and like you struggle with it, and then it turns out you could never solve it. Because like something was down, some server was down or something, or like, you know, something had happened behind the scenes that like it wasn't your fault or something like that, but like it appeared to be, and it's just like you're spinning your wheels for nothing. I find that frustrating. Regarding dungeons, I was really disappointed by 3 dungeon needing external resources, and basically it makes keys meaningless if you want to use them decently efficient. Yeah, so I just want to like, I'll read the rest of the question here, but like that desire to have them be used efficiently, I think that's something you've placed on yourself. Will we see more self-contained dungeons in the future? Also dungeons that have a very high reward but are still very hard to access, so just simply dropping a key would already be an exciting moment. I think we may have gone a little too far the other way with keys. Drop rates, like they might be too common now. I don't know. It's really hard to get a feel for that exactly. I think they might be a little too common now. A lot of the things in dungeons were just a little bit different from each other. That was very intentional, where there are certain things that like, yeah, like so some of them are basically completely self-contained, with the Soulfire Bastion, where like anything you have outside of the game is kind of irrelevant for the full-on rewards of that. And that's really intentional, compared to how Lightless Arbor requires you to have a bunch of gold. Now, you do get gold in the dungeon, so you will always get some reward, and you get a reward from the boss drops as well. I mean, I guess if you go in with 0 gold, you might not get much in the way of reward, but anyways. What am I getting at here? We've definitely learned a lot from those dungeons, and that they were all experiments on at least one axis. And I don't think that there is... Personally, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with either having self-contained or dungeons that require external resources to take full advantage of. And maybe full advantage might be the wrong word. Take optimal advantage of... What was the term you used? Efficiently. Yeah, so like having peak efficiency is something that a very small subset of players strive for, I think. And it's not something that we discount, but it is something that
Not happening.
I don't know. It's almost like a burden that isn't really there. That's a bad way of putting it, because it is really there. I don't know how to explain this at all. I think it's good to have both. I hope that answers it properly.
Not happening.
I really like having the plus all attributes, and most uniques, if you picked them up recently, if seen them recently, and they've got a plus all attributes, is because it was going through design. I know a lot of people are like, so much of this plus all attributes is just useless. And quite often when you see that plus all attributes on an item, it's because we were like debating the item, and I was like, let's put plus all attributes on it. I like pitched that for basically every item. I don't know, I just love having plus all attributes on different items, because I hate seeing zeros here. Okay, let's keep going. Gunpowder hasn't been invented, then what are the cannons doing in the Imperial era? Magic. Why use mana cost skills when all classes have OP non-mana management builds? I personally think the high mana melee skills need 10 times the power that they gotta compare with current 0 OP stuff. I think that might be a little bit of exaggeration, but I understand where you're coming from. Like, and so I guess, are you saying that you want them to deal 10 times the damage to take the lower cost skills off your bar, or to put the higher cost skills on your bar in the first place? And if it's to take the lower cost skills off your bar, then there's a disconnect in the goals there, because it's not the goal. Like, so I in the build I'm playing right now, I've got 2 abilities that I'm using, and I'm weaving them in based on the situation and what's happening. And then I've got I've got 2 offensive abilities that I'm actively using both of them on, and like, I know mana's not a big deal in this build, but one of them costs 40 and one of them costs 0, and I am very actively using both of them. Based on the situation, I think that's a really good thing personally. I wouldn't want to buff Hail of Arrows enough to take Puncture off my bar, and I wouldn't want to nerf Hail of Arrows enough to take Hail of Arrows off my bar, you know, like this sort of thing. And I know there's a lot of builds that there's no reason to put the Hail of Arrows style ability on your bar. And there might be a puncture build, like there probably is a puncture build where you don't need Hail of Arrows on there at all. But I really like playing with multiple things to do. And I guess it's just giving people the ability to do more than one thing if they want, and having it be functional and fun and playable, and not just like strictly worse than, if that makes any sense. As long as they're in the conversation.
Not happening.
Catching up. Catching up. Oh, did I miss? Oh, I got that. Okay. What's your favorite sound effect in Last Epoch? Oof. Oh, that's a tough one. I've got a great answer to this question. My favorite sound effect is one that's not in the game yet. I'm going to share it with you right now. Ooh-wee! It's a little bigger. It comes with VFX, too. Yeah, I'm still on screen. Haha. Oh, it's not playing the audio, is it? No. Is it playing the audio? I just can't hear it. Well, I'm hoping it plays the audio. It's got a cool sound that goes with it. So yeah, this is our new level up VFX. And audio if it's playing. I hope it is. Oh, I got a message from Reimer. I bet it's not playing the audio. It is! Oh, sweet. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Getting a little bit of that, like, time theming. I'm doing it on that screen. A little bit of that time theming in there. Probably can't see my cursor behind that anyways. Whatever. Huh. I understand the self-imposed desire to use it as efficient as possible, but the dungeons are simply not worth or fun enough to just play them. I disagree with that statement. And like, sorry, I shouldn't say disagree. I think a more accurate statement would be, I understand self-imposed desire to use it as efficiently as possible, but the dungeons simply are not worthwhile or fun enough to just play them for me. Would I think be an accurate statement. But like, for me, they're not that. For me, they're just fun. I do think that there's room for improvement in a lot of them.
Not happening.
Yeah. But also, if they're not just fun to play, wouldn't you prefer them to need external requirements so that you play them as few times as possible? Maybe I've completely missed the point you're trying to make there? That's entirely possible. I feel dungeons need to be at least monolith efficiency in reward to time to be worth the key. If they aren't, then why even pick up the key? Yeah, and they are supposed to be. They're supposed to be on the same similar level. Part of the problem as well is that monolith is so dungeons are a fixed experience, and the monolith is a variable experience that can scale. It has no cap on the scaling, so it's almost impossible to get those numbers to line up at every level. And I noticed some of the people that are commenting on this right now are, I would suggest, probably in the higher level of experience and character power, especially Heavy and Air. Where I recognize your names quite a lot for a very long time. You probably know a lot more than the average player. You probably have a lot better gear than the average player. You know, that sort of thing. So it is difficult to get those two things to line up at every level, and you might be sort of like outside of the range of where that lines up. You know. I think we'll also start to see less disparity on the system as a whole as we get more dungeons in. It is very much designed to be expanded upon, big time. And we'll see changes to it as it goes. We'll see new types of dungeons with new mechanics that will take the stuff that we learned. We already threw out 3 different dungeons that we had considered quite heavily based on feedback we got from the dungeons that we put in. And, you know, so there's already changes happening to the dungeons because we're like, well, people like this, they didn't like this for the most part, and well, this plan was gonna have this, but people don't seem to like that in this dungeon, so I guess we'll take that idea off the table, and you know, things like that. And oh, we had thrown this idea out, but people did seem to really like that style of thing in this other dungeon, so maybe we'll add it back in with some changes and stuff like that. It's to carry back to a question as well we got asked earlier with all of the what am I saying here? Cycle content, new and modified versions of existing dungeons is definitely a thing that we can add into cycles that I think would be really positive. A way to expand the content without adding too much stuff, because I think one of the things that causes more bloat in a system like Path of Exiles is when the new systems tie into the old very heavily, where they're sort of like required to happen. And I mean, like, you can, if the Vaults of Uncertain Fate is not efficient enough for you, you don't have to interact with it, and the only unique things that come out of that dungeon are the boss rewards, right? But it's all great feedback, and I'm really happy that the conversation's going. I get, sorry. I guess I should probably pull back a little bit here and say that I do appreciate the feedback, and I think it is really good feedback. I'm not trying to discount the feedback.
Not happening.
All right. Continuing back to the mana cost for skill power conversation. Why use a high mana skill while with the same amount of time I get mana back, I can out DPS that skill with 0 mana usage? Yeah, okay. So I think that just comes from those 0 mana skills are a little too powerful, probably, for the most part. And I don't, yeah, so, like, I agree with you that there's probably still a disparity there. But I think 10 times might be a little over the top.
Not happening. Might have to drop something.
And there are other factors there as well. So, like here's a really basic example, but like with puncture, with puncture, I have to be able to hit a fairly specific point to hit something. So there's some element of skill there. With Hail of Arrows, the space that I have to hit is unbelievably huge by comparison. So there is an element of, like, some abilities are easier to play with, and that gets factored in as well. But if you are a player that is incredibly skilled, that suddenly becomes much less of a factor, because you don't need to you don't need to worry about that, because you're like, oh, I can hit things with either, it doesn't matter. And I know hitting things with puncture isn't hard, but it's not a completely zero impact portion of the skill.
Not happening.
With their cooldowns, it often feels like you need a zero cost skill anyway in between, and you're often better off overall just focus on that one than to manage the mana cycle. Yeah, that makes sense. We might need to just improve synergies between low and high cost skills in general. So, like, using the high cost skills makes your low cost skills better, or something like that. So, like, the way to get the most out of puncture would be to use something like Hail of Arrows. I know I keep using those as an example because I'm just playing with it right now. That was concerning high mana cost skills in case you like mind what you have. Playing the audio. I wish there was, like, little timestamps beside these. I bet I could turn that on, actually. What would make dungeons way cooler would be door modifiers that actually impact the dungeon rewards instead of having generically and replaceable modifiers. Lightless Arbor and Temporal Sanctum modifiers are very boring. Soulfire Bastion modifiers are so much cooler. Yeah, I would agree with that. We were a little hesitant about the Soulfire Bastion modifiers. That's what I mean about, like, they were all kind of experiments in different ways. Because we're still experimenting. We're still trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what's fun, what's not. So pretty well every feature is an experiment in some way. I barely played since 8.5 due to IRL stuff, and so far the new dungeons haven't been able to draw me back in over other games. Fair enough. I'm biased towards reworks and new masteries, hint hint, but I feel little to no endorphins on getting a new dungeon key drops. Yeah, and that makes total sense. There's all sorts of different players that like different things, and different things excite you.
Not happening.
Like the big thing with, and like, I don't begrudge you for not playing because we're not releasing the things that are exciting to you. That makes total sense. Totally fair. Just to sort of, like,
Not happening.
I guess reassure, the masteries aren't out yet because releasing them now would delay the entire game. So, in an attempt to finish the whole game sooner, they got delayed. Which I know I've said before several times, but
Not happening.
I don't think I said it this stream. The UI work you did on the map was amazing. I find, though, that the campaign is really confusing on it. Yeah, it's tricky to do the whole time travel stuff in the map where you're, like, moving different areas. It's still tough, and there's improvements to have there. I agree, but it is getting a lot better. I think we're making big strides in the right direction. Also, like, where is too much hand-holding this? Like, where's the line there? I don't know. The campaign overall is getting quite a bit of work done on it over the next while. Like, that's something that is still evolving, and there's a lot of work that's being done on the campaign. The presentation of it, the structure of it, the pacing of it, all of that. The fact that we switch ears is already confusing to follow, but we don't even have the chapter we are in displayed on the map. Although knowing which area corresponds to which chapter is impossible to see on the map right now. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Having the chapters there probably would be really useful. There's a little bit of overlap, but not much. You can see what chapter you're in by pressing escape, which I know is, like, kind of weird and oddly unintuitive to have. Having, like, which chapter each quest was part of might be useful, like in the quest log. Or when you zoom out here, having, like, chapter 3, town, or something like that might be useful. That's good feedback. That's the sort of thing that I would encourage you to go to our forums and leave a post about. Would you ever add the dungeon bosses as modified fights in the monoliths so their uniques are obtainable a different way? Unlikely, but possibly. It is very intentionally distinct and separate. Maybe. It like, if the goal is to, I know this probably isn't the goal that you're going for here with the suggestion, but if the goal were to make key drops more exciting, this would have the exact opposite effect.
Not happening.
Will the Shaman Mastery rework remain theming on cold and lightning, or will it lean away from cold damage due to the emphasis on cold element Druid received? The Shaman's primary theming is around like the Wrath of Nature. I would put that like the elemental Wrath of Nature is sort of the, I guess. That's a bad tagline. There's a clever way to word that sounds awesome in there. I promise. I don't know what it is, but I bet it's there. And one of the primary elements that nature has at its disposal is cold.
Not happening.
If you're unprepared in the wilderness, dying to exposure is one of the most common, and that's just a fancy way of saying you got too cold.
Not happening.
I guess where I am,
Not
it's
happening.
you got too cold.
Easy. Too easy.
But yeah, I would say there's cold, lightning, physical are the three primary elements of Primalist, and that has no intention of changing. And poison. Cold, lightning, physical, poison. But Shaman's less on the poison. Got my beetle!
Not happening. Not happening.
Ooh. Oh!
Might have to drop something.
Yeah, I might have to drop something for that. Could you see major changes to all bosses for high-end content? Major changes to all bosses is an unbelievable amount of work, so just right there, like, maybe, but, like, that's a huge project. Like Empowered Monolith or possibly third Monolith of Fate difficulty, same boss fight, more complex mechanics. Path of Exile did this as well in Sentinel with Uber Pinnacle bosses getting new mechanics. I think that gives you as devs really good room to design even more epic boss fights without overpowering new players. Yeah, I think that as we get more campaign in to go further, and as we get more updates to the to the like Monolith and other endgame mechanics, I would be more interested in mechanically updating the current empowered versions rather than adding in a third tier. And having boss fights change more as you go to harder versions of them, I think is a great idea, and we're already doing that a little bit, and we try and do it more and more as we go further. I think that there needs, like, we don't really have any bosses that fit in the same category as the, like, Uber Pinnacle bosses or just Uber bosses in PoE in general yet. Because there is this infinite scaling measure that goes on with the monoliths. I'm not sure that the monolith bosses are the right place to do that. They might be, but we'll see. There's definitely room for like capstone boss content that doesn't exist yet. Is multiplayer ever coming out? Don't forget to at Last Epoch Game with a question if you want me to answer it. Yes, it's definitely ever coming out. Yes, you can turn timestamps on with the settings menu. Interesting. I will have to look that up. Escape is for IRL calls. Why would I ever press it? It doesn't even pause the game. It does in the editor, though, when we're working on it, which I find funny. You know what? I've been so stingy with you all. I'm sorry. I need to apologize. My bad. Hey, look at this cool thing. I wonder what that could be. I bet it's not related to anything I put up last week. Yeah, so this is the updated visuals for the Summon Bear skill for the Primalist, which I'm so excited about. See you later, Theodore. Move over. You mean cold, physical, totem, melee versus spell, and lightning only slapped onto other things, rarely being focused itself, right? King totally not shaman for life. Yeah. There's some restructuring that needs to happen a little bit, but yeah, it's those are all themes, yes. But as far as elements go, like if we're talking, so when I was talking about this, I'm just like so we usually pick somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 of these elements for each class, and so Primalist is these 4 in the middle. Lightning through poison, that's Primalist. And like Sentinel, for example, is fire, physical, void, and then they get some stuff with lightning as well. There's ever that creeping in, and you can make builds. Like I saw a poison. Someone was streaming. They were doing a poison warpath build. So like it works. It's there. You can do it. It's just not the primary focus. And like mage is these 3 here. You know. And Acolyte is these 4 on the end. It's basically everything other than Mage. Mage and Acolyte are kind of inverse of each other. So there's like, and there's overlaps there because you can do fire things in Acolyte now. Yeah. Demon's Dad on. Hey, Demon's Dad on. Demon's Dad on what? Demon's Dad on has subbed for Twitch Prime. Thank you very much. As I fumble through your name like an idiot. My bad. I realized as well that I was just referencing things with the screen open. Sorry. I was sectioning off these. So like Shaman is, or Primalist is these 4 here. That's what I was trying to say. There's people telling me that now on Discord and things. Yeah. Sorry. Wait, is the bear armor a DLC? Subtle callback to the start of the DLC Floodgate, which was horse armor in Oblivion. It's Oblivion? Was horse armor Oblivion or Skyrim? It was Oblivion. Okay. I thought it was Oblivion. Not losing my mind. It is not a DLC armor. No, that's just what the bear will look like. Ooh, new bear. Yeah, new bear. Aaron, I think you were mentioning something about a bear in on your last podcast or something. You were talking like, oh, we're gonna get like see new bear visuals soon or something. I was like, yeah, real soon. All right. Is it just a visual update, or is the skill getting an update too? The skill's definitely getting an update too. This is something I've talked about before. We didn't want to do a skill update for. So okay, Summon Sabretooth, Summon Bear are both extremely old skills, and we've wanted to do updates to a lot of their functionality in their trees for quite a while now. But a lot of those changes came with them, VFX changes, model change, visual changes, like, and just stuff that we didn't have. We would have to do the modeling and the VFX for them for these changes, and we knew that we wanted to update the visuals to a new style on both of those skills and Golem. Same answer for Golem here. And so we didn't want to do the work to change them visually, and then update their visuals and have to do all of that work again. So we were holding off on doing the functional changes to those 3 skill trees before we did any until we had visual changes ready to go for them. And then on top of that, there's what was I going to say? Bear, Primalist. Oh yes, and then so the creating those new visuals for them competes with a lot of other things as well. So I know a lot of people have been talking about okay, we're doing cosmetic NTX and everything like that, and we want to make stuff for that, but you can't do that until you've got the models for everything in game to actually look right. So before we could work on the bear and sabertooth and golem models, we had to work on the having this hat actually look like this hat, so that we can also, because that project of replacing all the gear models was blocking the project for MTX as well. So there's just cascading, okay, well this has that before that, this has that before that, and finding how to do it most efficiently so the fewest things are blocked as possible is really important. And that's why having good project management is really important. Shout out to the project managers. I think I might play this build a little bit longer than some of the other ones, because I actually kind of want to get into Empowered and everything. I might make a proper loot filter. Or if you guys are getting bored of it, I might switch up something new. That fight at the end of last stream with the, what's it called? The rogue arena champion was just so great. Afterwards, I'm like, I just want to keep playing this build, this character. I just want to keep going. I'm like, no, save it for stream, Mike. Save it for stream. Alright, sir, see you soon. Booting up my stream. See ya in... Well, I'll be there in about 18 minutes, but... Everyone else will join you sooner. That would be McFluffin doing a Ruby Fang Void Knight. Yeah, okay. That was the poison whirlwind. That's a good way to do it. A little bit for the lulz. Selfish request about speedrunning. Will it be possible to still interact with UI elements when I click on time rifts? Talking about the fade to black, clicking on it before having to change the time animation. Extremely unlikely.
Easy. Too easy. Not happening.
I think more likely it would be like a ability to just skip the whole thing entirely. Than being, yeah, maybe. That's I'll be real honest with you about this, and it's not going to be what you want to hear, especially when we're in this early stage. Still, we're still in early access. We're still just trying to get the core game finished. Speedrunning is not a core functionality to the game. It's something we love and we want to support as much as we can. If the decision comes down to, should we make this feature that literally everyone has to interact with, or should we make this feature that a really tiny subset of players will have a small impact on? Because yeah, it would be nice, but it's not the end of the world type thing. It gets pushed down the list a bit, and I hope you can understand that. It's just not, we have to prioritize in order to get it done. If we were just willy-nilly do whatever, I mean, it'd be years before we were done still. Be a lot of cool stuff in there. Ooh, I probably shouldn't have gone here. Only have 5 minutes left. I'm going to rapid fire these questions off. Without getting us any details, can you get a glance at what damage types the 3 Mystery Masteries will most likely focus on? Will Warlock be necrotic fire focused, Falconer physical, Rune Master also all 3 elements? I would say the only thing I can say about this is that the elements, you will not see any major deviations from the base class elements that are available. So Falconer will have roughly the same elements available as Blade Dancer and Marksman. Rogue as a whole, Rune Master will have roughly the same elements available as Mage, Sorcerer, and Spellblade, and Warlock will have roughly the same elements available as Acolyte, Necromancer, and Lich. And I say roughly the same because there can be focuses that shift, or like a new one that gets added in, or one that kind of gets dropped a little bit, but for the most part, they're roughly pretty similar. Opinions on the community unique event, results, community response, etc. I mean, I do have a lot. We're right at the end, and I kind of want to answer this more in depth, but it is... I love the amount of engagement that happened out of it. I definitely think we made a couple little slips. The biggest problem that happened, I think, is we were concerned it would take too long and people would kind of lose interest. So we tried to condense things down a little bit, and we may have condensed it down a tiny bit too much. Which I was on the team of let's condense it down, so that was partially my fault. I'm just gonna portal out of here. But I'm pumped for the item that's coming, and I think it was very successful. So, you know, overall, I'd be surprised if nothing like this ever happens again, type thing. But after we've learned things, because we like learning things. What do you think about big Echo-style maps like Bloodmoor, where you have to kill all the mobs in the mid-boss spawns with similar skills to the main timeline boss to teach mechanics of the timeline boss? Good. I do really like that. That's about all I've got. Is this confirmation that those skills are getting their rework next patch? No, because I don't actually have a list of skills that I'm working on for next patch yet. All I hear is we prefer to be lazy. I'm not 100% sure what that was in reference to, but I don't think that's true at all. Oh, this was probably when I was talking about the not wanting to do it twice. This is, we have, like, if you have 10 units of time to do something in, and if you had to redo things, it would make it so you couldn't do everything in those 10 units of time, then we'd have to, like, cut content from the final game. Like if this is what I think you're talking about, like, we prefer to have more stuff in the launch game than have our early access be a tiny bit better right now. If that makes any sense. We're basically everything we do is like get us to launch. That's where we're at right now. Is how do we get to launch with the most stuff in the best quality we can. If you make content timer based, I would literally quit. I'll want to play WoW again. Did I say that? I don't. If I said anything about like time-gated content where like you can only do it like once a week or something like that, I apologize. I don't think I said anything like that. Like raid lockouts? I was not intending to say anything like raid lockouts. If that's what you're talking about. I hope that's not what you meant. Or I don't know what that question is. I'm sorry. Tag to highlight your question. Is it intentional that we can't make hybrid builds with spell attacks? Like on my Spellblade, at some point you have to make a choice endgame, either spell or attacks. For the most part, yes, we try to give you the tools to go outside the box if you want. Some of these things that aren't quite there for hybrids will probably come with uniques in the future. Re-asked with tags. Bolton Squad, first time chat, and a tagged question. Look at you. You know what you're doing. Don't know if this has been answered before, but for multiplayer, do you have seasons, events, races, etc. planned? Do you, yes. Do you plan on pulling in some of the top PoE Diablo streamers to do so? Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with some big PoE players, Carve he's been a member of our team for years now, and he's great. So we do try and talk to people who are in related communities because they have a lot of experience in these types of games. We had a big stream with an interview with Zizarin, who's primarily a PoE streamer. That was like last week or something. So that was great. So yeah, we definitely do look into other communities, and we're definitely going to be looking at seasons, events, races, and stuff like that. So yeah. And also, to be clear, we never encourage someone to be like, you should stop doing that and come do this instead. It's always just like, we see you like that, you might like this too. It's sort of the extent of it. Because there's room for more than one awesome action RPG. Can we expect an Ellie Royale? I think that was a very successful game mode. That Path of Exile put in, and I think it would be a lot of fun. Not gonna say yes or no to that, unfortunately. However, we've come to the end of our stream. I hope you all had fun. I know I did. And to take us out, I actually have one more thing that I forgot to share. So here we go, right at the wire. Anyone who's still here, here's one last preview for the stream, and I feel like Aaron's already gone, so I'll probably show this again on his stream in a minute here. But yeah, last little thing to take us out. That's all we've got for you this week. I hope you had fun. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to go say hi to Aaron. And so yeah, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to go get a drink of water, take a quick breather, catch my breath, and I'll be back. We're going to be designing a new unique item on Aaron's stream. So I'm going to host over to Aaron right now. If you just go there or you stick around there, we will be doing his unique item creation on stream. It'll be about an hour. We'll also have Nifty, one of our concept artists, coming in there doing some concept art for the item live as we're talking about it. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Hope to see you over there. And if there's anything else I missed, please feel free to head on over to our Discord, where we do have there's people always answering questions in our Ask the Dev section. We also have an Ask the Community section if it's an easier question. And there's tons of very knowledgeable people over there that'll be happy to answer your questions. See you later!